Hi guys, how are you? So nice to connect to you. Welcome to this live stream. Welcome to this video. My name is Laura. This is Pleiadian Healer from PleiadianHealer.com. And wow, it's been a while. I think it's been a good month or so. Let me check the last time when we actually had a live stream. I think it was still before Germany and everything. And I had wanted to do one last week, so exactly a week ago. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, it was 4 weeks ago, exactly 4 weeks ago. So I had wanted to do one last week, but unfortunately, as I already explained in the censorship and energetic warfare video from 5 days ago, if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. This channel got its very first strike after being in existence for over 3 years, like 3.5 years or so. And is it demotivating? A little bit, but at the same time, it wasn't entirely surprising. It didn't come out of nowhere because there was a different channel that had a strike first. That channel was featured in an interview. And then my backup channel kind of got that strike too. So once you were kind of on their radar, I guess the AI and algorithms pick up on it. No, it was not related to New Age, like some people upsetly commented on my community post. New Age is one of the most secure and safe topics to discuss on this channel, it appears. So we're going to stick with that. It actually had to do with the entire injection agenda. And that was upsetting in and of itself because it was a very strong video. Now, if you go to that one video that I just mentioned, I link the video that was taken down in the comment section and also the video description. So you can still see the two videos that were taken down on my BitChute and also on my Odyssey. All right, one is the interview, the other one is the one that has to do with the insight when people got their second injection and everything, right? Like, kind of got to use a few code words here, obviously. I also can't comment on this video right now while I'm doing the live stream. So let me just put it here in the chat. You guys can also chat along here. And let me just check the audio quality while some people are tuning in. So this might be my very first live stream during the day in a very long time, probably since like April 2020 when when the pandemic first started breaking out and everything. Let me just check how the quality is. Okay, this one's not working. I'll try this one. One of the earbuds stopped working a while ago. All right, seems to be okay. Yeah, so anyhow, welcome to this channel. If you're new, like this video, you can comment below afterwards. I put on the subscriber mode only because I know this topic might attract a whole lot of trolls again. It has over the last few days, which already shows you how controlled the Gigi Young crowd is, and also how controlled the entire New Age trap agenda is, right? So I want to go into that again. And kind of just see, because there was like a psychic attack that came through the same night that I aired that premiere on Gigi Young. And I want to discuss that with you. There might also be some distractions coming in the background in terms of noise. So we're just going to try to work through those. Part of the reason why I personally, hi to Anton, why I personally do not like recording during the day is simply because I have neighbors, and those neighbors, tend to be typical neighbors here in New York. They're not necessarily quiet, especially on a weekend. So usually at nighttime, you circumvent a lot of distractions. Also, typical city, there's like sirens and stuff. There's more stuff going on during the day here than there is at nighttime. But right now it's around 5:20 p.m. EST, meaning it's around 11 p.m. Germany time. It should still be around 10 p.m. UK time. So I think this is kind of a UK friendly time, maybe even European friendly time. I do realize it's a Saturday night for most of you guys. So if you're going out or whatever, you might not want to watch this. But however, you can always watch the replay. So that's great. And what I want to do actually is I want to switch it up. So I want to do, because I usually do 2 live streams a month. like every fifth video, for people who haven't figured it out yet, every fifth video is basically a live stream. I know the entire schedule got messed up because I was traveling in between and I did not want to live stream from my parents' house in Germany. Obviously, you want to make the most out of your time when you're with your relatives and everything. But from now on, it's every fifth video again. So typically, you know, that's like every 2 weeks or so. So I actually want to make one live stream late at night, like I usually do, and one live stream maybe earlier during the day, like in the afternoon, maybe even earlier than now, like 4 p.m. EST or something, just for the European people. So going to the community poll, let me pull that up right here. About a month, no, 3 weeks ago, I had asked you what time zones you're in. So most people, if you put the New York City time and California time together, it's 27 plus 14%. It's like 41% of people are in the US. It's almost half. I mean, it's 40%. And 35% are in the UK and Europe. So it still seems a large majority somehow are on US time. That can also include Mexico. It can include South America and all of that. But yeah, we're kind of like at a breaking point of, you know, who to cater to first. So I'm going to try to have like one live stream more during the day and one later at night again. Hi to Aaron as well. So any announcements? Right. So I'm going to put a link below in the comment section. Please subscribe to alternative platforms, Odyssey, BitChute, all of that. Now, I actually had to come up with my own link because a while ago, I think it was 1 or 2 years ago, you know, when you're on Instagram and you have the Linktree address, you know, linktree.com, and then your Instagram username. So back in the beginning of 2021, yeah, I don't click on that link all the time, by the way, only when people are telling me, oh, your link isn't working. And somehow someone directed me towards that. And they're like, somehow your Linktree link isn't working. And I was like 1.5 years ago. And lo and behold, Linktree had put up a warning being like, we just kind of finished this account, you know, exterminated this account, or terminated this account, meaning my account on Linktree, something for like misleading information or some very vague reason, because I was posting a whole bunch of stuff on the 2020 agenda, and somehow they work together with Google or Instagram or whatever. It's when everyone's censored, you know, on Instagram, everyone's obviously censored who kind of speaks the truth over there, who's really upset about the injection agenda. So back in January 2021, my Linktree was terminated. And I'm like, okay, great. Because it's kind of where you put everything in, you know, you put like all your booking links, your alternative platform links, everything. So I had to figure out alternatives. And then I tried something called biolinksy.com. or bio.link. Whatever, something that no one would really want to click on anyways, because Linktree has this really nice thing where you have like different colors and it looks so pretty. So I had that for a little while, and then after about 6 months it got terminated too for similar reasons. And then I had to come up with a whole new thing. So I think I had a different account that no one has ever really heard of, where I put all my links in. And then I came across this one person who literally had a website and kind of put all her links in that. And I saw that and I was like, wow, that is such an amazing idea. I'm going to do the same for mine. And so that's why when you go on the link that I just put in the chat, and also the one I'm going to put in the comment section, you'll basically see all the links there. You know, you'll see how to get to my BitChute, my Odyssey, everything. But it's actually a brilliant idea because, first of all, it directs you towards your website, which you kind of want, you know, especially if you provide anything or if you have your own website. Mind you, a lot of accounts on Instagram actually don't even have their own website, which I find a bit weird, especially the ones that do like, they have like products and stuff, you know, they still sell over Etsy or whatever, which I don't think it's smart at all because everything's censored at this point. You know, the one thing that it really showed me, not just the strike situation, but also just the situation over the past 2 years. One thing it really showed me with Facebook, with Instagram, with all of these social media outlets is that basically they can just censor you and everyone else for various different reasons that don't even matter. Even if you don't want to purchase an ad with them or whatever, they just kind of censor you and push you further down in the feed and all of that. So it's not just me who's noticing that, obviously, it's a whole bunch of other people too. But one thing that social media, and it really bothered me about social media over these past 2 years, is too, that you're just basically randomly, you push to the edge, whereas other people, like all these bot accounts that are fake accounts, and like the 6 million followers a celebrity has or whatever, like all of those are bot accounts usually. Like those are being pushed and hyped and here and there. So yeah, I do think it's smart to kind of look for alternative stuff. I'm also working on a course, actually, because it's all about the courses, right? As we've seen with other people too, where you can kind of build up your online business without social media, which I think is very important nowadays too. Because social media is great, don't get me wrong. I really love connecting with you guys on YouTube and everything. But we've seen how kind of it can just be taken away from you, right? From one day to another. And it has with other people for sure. I'm not the only one who's experiencing these issues. And but so far so good. Yeah, so if anyone else is in the chat, you can just comment. You have to be a subscriber to do that. So that would be a good thing. Now, today we wanted to talk about the Faraday solutions. I have 2 examples here. These are cell phone cages. But before that, I think we might go into my dream and psychic attack that I do believe was evoked somehow by Gigi Young and her followers, because I thought it was very, very interesting. And what else did I put in here? Hold on, just give me a moment. Oh yeah, timelines, very interesting too. Someone asked me about timelines and whether or not I thought the 2017 timeline was actually a thing, because they had kind of felt for them it was more like 2018 or a different timeline. So we're going to go into that. And then also, right before I forget, hi to Mahala. So I have a new mini webinar out, and that is called Shifting Your Past. So heal your past by shifting past events, shifting the energy of past events. I put it in the community tab too. And this one's actually going to be part of a larger thing. So I'm going to have a shamanic healing certificate out in the fall, very, very soon. It's already being worked on, but we're currently also in Mercury retrograde. So as much as I don't really want to say it matters, it kind of does matter. You're noticing a whole bunch of technology issues. You're noticing a whole bunch of stuff that's kind of just being forgotten in the masses. So for me personally, I have noticed that business-wise and also travel-wise, I do get influenced somehow by the Mercury retrograde. And so I'm going to wait until we're done with that, which is going to be October something. And it's going to be a pretty humongous course. It's going to be 6 to 8 weeks long, completed on your own time. So a little bit different than this whole communication course. And it's basically going to teach you everything. Like if you want to do healing. So this is for people who want to do healings either on themselves or other people. And we'll talk more about that when it's out. But this webinar that is basically being introduced to you right now is it's a module of that course. And so if you want to get a taste of the course overall, you can with that. Okay, I'll answer your questions in a second. And what else did I want to say? Right, so you can just kind of get an introduction to how the course might be, because it's probably going to be like one module out of many, like one module out of 30 or so. I'm not really sure 100%. And yeah, it's going to give you a good taste because it already teaches how you can use it on yourself, but also on clients. And this has a lot to do with shamanic journeying and shifting the energy of the past, which I think can be very interesting for some people. So the links for that, once again, I'll put the links in the comment section in the description box once this video is over. Okay, hi to Sasha, hi to Misha. Sasha saying, did you ever sell those amethyst beads you had a few months ago? I don't remember having any amethyst beads. I had I still had stuff from Tucson Gem Show. I didn't sell that much jewelry. I didn't buy as much jewelry there. So the jewelry that I'm selling right now is more what I had here. I had like amethyst, the raw amethyst rocks, maybe the one wand or whatever. Do you have any recommendations to start a website? Yeah, I mean, I would. Right now, you have a few ones out there, right? You have the Squarespace one, you have the Wix one, you have SmugMug and all of that. Look into what you can afford. And a website that's also working with SEO. I'm not a huge fan of the Squarespace personally. I think the price is pretty out there for what you need. So I would look at affordable options and also at the right time to launch it. Meaning numerology could play a role in it. There's a lot that can play a role in it, and also like the right name for it too. But yeah, maybe someone else has advice for a website. I work with two different ones. I work with Wix and then also SmugMug for a different type of business. I mean, if you want, I guess you could sell on Etsy. It's just Etsy has such a huge fee in return that it's almost, I mean, it depends. If you're just starting off, it might be worth it for you. But down the line, you probably want to set up your own thing. For products, you might want to look at other options because I think other people have like a product website is different from just like a photography website or other things, from my understanding. But yeah, Mercury's in retrograde until October 9th or so. And then shadow period is until the 16th or 17th or whatever. Yeah, it's pretty tough because right now we're also in Virgo, which Virgo is a Mercury ruled sign. And all the Mercury ruled signs, so usually that's Gemini and Virgo are the two major ones. I think also all the other air signs, in my opinion, though, anything that's kind of ruled by Mercury or influenced by Mercury can have it tough during the retrograde. So it doesn't make it easy that it's in the sign of Virgo because Virgo already kind of is ruled by Mercury. And I don't really, do much with astrology or whatever. As you guys know, I don't 100% resonate with it for my own personal reasons, but I do think there's an influence somehow that you can't ignore. I personally was traveling. Like this week, I was actually going to like a little beach thingy overnight, and we experienced so many delays on the trip to it. Like it was not even funny. And I was like, this is strange. Like I literally just missed the train, which would have usually never happened, just certain things like that. So I definitely know a lot of it could maybe be Mercury retrograde or just other stuff going on. But I experienced it firsthand this week too. So yeah, okay, Gigi Young, psychic attacks. Let's go into that. All right, first of all, I'm going to be traveling Monday through Saturday. Well, just pay attention to it, Mala. Just get to the airport or whatever on time or wherever you're going. I mean, 2 years ago, when I was traveling to Mexico, the entire trip was in Mercury retrograde. And I remember I had to like calculate I actually extended the trip for 3 or 4 more days because otherwise I would have not gotten anything done. Even driving, I mean, there could be like traffic jams or whatever, or I don't know, a tire busting. I don't really know, but just really calculate enough time into it. I remember I was missing random buses or buses weren't going because I was kind of traveling with buses throughout the entire Quintana Roo area. And it was a bit of an interesting situation because then they also had hurricanes and everything. Was it hurricane? Well, whatever the flooding was, I think it was hurricanes or whatever, tornadoes, hurricanes. So, right. So, like I said, actually, when I was airing that Gigi Young video, me and my dog, we were taking like 2 days off just to kind of be at the beach and enjoy the last of the summer. So, a summer holiday close by, not too far here from the city, but it still took a while to get there. Let me just turn something off here. Okay, I think that works. Yeah. And usually when I'm somewhere where I haven't really slept before, the first few nights are the most intense. I'm the type of person who really remembers dreams. I even have like entire dream journals and everything. I write everything down. And so usually when I am somewhere somewhere new, the first night or the first 2 nights are the most intense. So I really remember almost everything that I dreamt. And then it kind of just fades away a little bit, but I still remember a whole lot. Now, I do know that some people really just don't remember their dreams at all, and others are very well at remembering them. So I think it has to do with certain factors too. Actually, one astrologer who did my chart in Sedona like a year or so ago told me that because of this and that, whatever's on my chart, I'm the person who remembers their dreams, whereas others wouldn't necessarily. So I think maybe it has something to do with the chart. I'm not really sure, but the way he explained it, it kind of made sense to me. It was very interesting. And I've always been the type of person, I've been writing my dreams down from a very young age on. So I've always been that type of person. Now, let me just go through the dream. So I had written it down. It was very interesting. It wasn't, if you don't know, if you hadn't been interpreting your dreams for so long, you probably wouldn't even know it was related to Gigi Young. But the way I interpreted it, which I'll explain after, was that it was very much related to it. So first of all, we were in Switzerland. So in this dream, it was just me. Okay. But then there were all these random people around it. So I was at an event in Switzerland. And keep in mind, I'm not from Switzerland. I'm from Germany. So I don't really have a connection to Switzerland. They do speak German in certain parts, but I've been there a few times. It's just, there's nothing there in Switzerland. So Switzerland is also called the neutral country. And there's a lot of dark stuff in Switzerland, though, especially if you want to go back with World War II and what really went down. They weren't just the ones that were neutral. There was a lot of money washing going through Switzerland. They were just the ones that kept their mouths shut in a way, similar to Luxembourg too. It's a banker country. So Luxembourg, Switzerland, in that sense, are neutral, are similar because there's a lot of money and banking going through those. But Switzerland's a little bit larger because it has 10 million people, as opposed to Luxembourg, which is like 250,000 people population. And the reason I'm mentioning Luxembourg is because I actually grew up close to Luxembourg. So I always like to compare both of them in a way. But we were at an event in Switzerland. There was a guy in a suit bragging about the P and then the E, D, and then O. Okay. So I have to just kind of put it that way. Otherwise, things might get censored. And then there was a mom with a baby buggy hearing how he was bragging about it, right? So for me, that kind of meant there's a lot of that going on in Switzerland and also other European countries. The queen also just passed away, right? And she's kind of connected to all of that. So I found this dream actually really interesting. And then the guy in the suit, and this is like a lot, the guy in the suit keeps coming up. I actually saw the Matrix movies again and everything. And I want to dissect both the Matrix movies and also the movie Inception in a different video. So that's probably going to be the next video that's going to come out. But the guys in the suits are always the guys that are basically in the Matrix and reinforcing Matrix stuff. Okay, that's kind of how you have to see it. So this guy in the suit who was bragging about this horrendous thing, he was going to the toilet, all right? And it was a round circle building. So you know how you're dreaming about something and then it goes from round to square, the entire shape changes? That's kind of what it felt like me. So this was a round circle, kind of like a tower thingy. And then the toilet was somewhere. So I kind of wanted to avoid him. So I went around the circle thing a few times just to avoid him. Then I saw the toilet sign somewhere and bypassed it just to make sure I never see this guy again. And when bypassing it, I somehow opened up this door and ended up in an auditorium with a cult-like following. So this is where the entire Gigi Young thing starts. They were there, this auditorium was about, someone was giving a presentation, and the guy who was giving a presentation looked very reptilian. It had to do, because we were in Switzerland, it had to do with like a Swiss product. I don't know what it was. I met some people, like, who were supposed to, in this dream, I didn't know who they were. Like one was Turkish, others were of other nationalities, whatever. But these were supposed to be friends or whatever. And we spent some time together. And then hours also felt like days or longer. But the relationships that I had with these people in the dream felt very empty. And for me, that's always like a huge sign of if you don't choose the right people to be around you, be it either like a boyfriend or partner or like a friendship or any type of relationship, really, right? It's going to feel empty. So, especially nowadays, like for the past 2 years, we've been really confined to like the online space and, getting to know each other online and even working online. Like people were still working remotely and everything. For me, that was kind of like there were different messages in it. It was, first of all, online spaces being very empty because of so many AI bots and robots being in them, but also just in general, relationships just being very empty, including the own relationship that I had over the past few years, meaning friendships, actual relationships and all of that. So we went back to, so after that, after kind of having that experience of, okay, relationships are feeling empty, the hours felt like days or longer, we went back to the same auditorium setting, but the entire energy kind of changed. And then I saw the Wu-Tang Clan, which is so funny. I think they're from Staten Island, actually. Let me look it up. I think that's the only reason I saw them. Yeah, they're from Staten Island, New York City. So this is kind of like from Switzerland. There's like this New York City group in Switzerland. So the Wu-Tang Clan, I never dream of the Wu-Tang Clan or anything, by the way. They were serving up lunch with beans and chicken or whatever. It was just something very basic, like something stupid like that. And they had, so if you know the Wu-Tang Clan, they're a hip hop group. They wear like certain things. They used to wear certain things. I don't even know if they're still around. But it was so strange because they had their entire faces scarfed up. You know how people were wearing their mask? They basically had their entire, just a scarf around their entire face because they didn't want to be recognized or whatever. So they had their faces scarfed up when we saw them. And, like in the hip hop industry, that could have been like a form of fashion is what kind of came to mind when I saw it like that in the dream. And what I thought was interesting is that parts of the members of the Wu-Tang Clan seemed to care more about me than the people that I had spent so much time with beforehand. And then there were very steep red carpet steps. So if this is an auditorium, it was kind of leading down. There were these like very steep red carpet steps. And there was also a dog. So this is not the dog that I have, but just like a random dog. It was like a blonde, like beige blonde type of dog. And the dog was not nice. It was actually like a small to medium size. I even know what this dog looked like. I've never even seen this dog ever before in my life, but I really do remember what this dog looked like. So the dog was not nice. It was kind of like an aggressive dog. And the dog pushed me down the steps. And then, so this is a very steep auditorium with like these red carpet steps. So he pushed me down the steps somehow, and I fell like down these steps. It was a very steep fall, and I couldn't move. And the people that I had spent so much time with beforehand didn't care at all. And before this, like a few hours or days, because time is obviously very fluid in a dream. Before this, I remember in my dream that I had seen another person do like another thing. The same thing happened to another person, that this person randomly fell down the steps and was basically paralyzed or whatever. And the same happened to me in this dream. And then, the time was obviously very warped. So it must have been like an hour-long dream, or maybe like a 15-minute long dream or whatever, but it just seemed like it was very long. And so I kind of had some paintings as well, paintings with like the faces of the people that were supposed to be my friends in the dream. And it also had my name and my address and everything on it. But I kind of collected all these paintings. It's kind of like the paintings that you put on your fridge, as a child, whatever. You kind of just collect all of that before you move out of an apartment. That's kind of what it felt like to me, because I did not want to leave anything behind that would remind anyone of me, basically. So I just kind of wanted to leave that entire scene behind. And so how does this relate to psychic attacks with Gigi Young? So for people who wouldn't know how to interpret their dreams, for me personally, I had dreams similar with a similar dark energy like this after I aired Lori Ladd. And I'm not sure about Elena Dane, and I was actually in Germany, and I don't remember the dream that I had right after that. But a lot of these psychic attacks come through in dreams, okay? And so not everything about this dream had to do with Gigi Young, but the part where the guy was looking reptilian and there was a cult-like following did, and also the part where I basically fell down these steps and was paralyzed. And just by the amount of comments that came in after that, because it's literally like the day after when I woke up, to me, it just kind of felt like a lot of her followers were really out there just to kind of stab me from behind and leave me paralyzed, or kind of just leave me for dead or whatever. So this is just, a simple dream and interpretation of it for people who are not as tapped in, or who don't really care much about their dreams, or don't really care much about their life. You might not see it that way, and I don't really care that much, to be honest with you. I'm just sharing how psychic attacks come through in my dreams. Other nightmares that I've had, as I already mentioned, was like relatives actually dying. That's usually not coming from New Agers, though. It's literally coming from like the AI controllers who want that relative to die, for example, and are just kind of telling me beforehand. And that's why I really, really also want to do this review on the movie Inception, because Inception explains a lot, and I had never seen this movie before. And on my plane ride over from here to Germany and back, I was able to see that movie and also a few of the Matrix movies again. And Inception actually explained a lot how we actually have these walls up during our dream state, but not really, and how they can get through to that. And when I saw that movie, everything made sense. They're giving you so much disclosures in a lot of these movies. So Cipolla is asking, when did you have this dream? So I had this dream right after I aired the Gigi Young one, the Gigi Young review. And, in the beginning, the comments that came through, there were already like a few trolls in the chat and everything. Okay. So it's not unusual, but somehow overnight, this thing was set in motion where I'm waking up and it's only troll comments, which I've obviously removed, because if you have nothing, if you're coming from a space where you actually want to argue and be like, hey, I disagree with you on this for these and these reasons, that's fine. Your comment's going to stay up. If you're going to come from a space where you're toxically pushing your BS and new age garbage onto this channel, and you're going ahead and insulting other people who are following this channel, which some people did, they were literally commenting on other people's comments being like, you're brainwashed, or you have no brain in your head. I don't really care much if you want to insult me. You're going to get removed anyhow, because I have zero tolerance for that. There are people out there who leave all of those toxic comments up when they do New Age reviews. I know they've been bombarded with like 1,000 comments below one video. I in that situation, maybe I would leave them up just to see how ridiculous these new cagers are. But in a situation like this, where overnight, you just have all these trolls coming in out of nowhere, and it was shared somewhere on Gigi Young's page or somewhere below her comment section too, and then it was removed. I saw that too. But when you just have this toxicity coming here to my channel, I don't have any tolerance for that, because I'm not here to keep you entrapped further and further in that duality nonsense. I'm doing them to show you how they're brainwashing people, and they really are brainwashing people. And if this person is literally just taking Rudolf Steiner's teachings, whether or not she's mentioning his name or not, it doesn't even matter. And she's not offering much insight on her own other than that. Some people were like, oh, but she is offering a way out. I still have to find that way out. She made one video on a way out. Amazing. I'm not impressed. I'm sorry. And it's really not, she's promoting spirit guides or misguides. She's promoting angels. Like, we very clearly saw that in that one video. She's promoting all these toxic concepts that have people left in a suicidal state. I'm not kidding you. I've dealt with people who are in a suicidal state because they did angel card readings. They've called in the angels and archangels during their healings. Like, this is serious stuff. And if you don't really see that, maybe you don't really belong on this channel, is what I'm thinking. And most of these people never even followed this channel. There's like one commenter and that was it. And I'm like, you don't even follow this channel. And if you were, then maybe it's time for you to reevaluate where you want to be, because I'm not here to keep you guys trapped in that wrong thing. Okay. You can go through my entire Instagram. You can go through this entire YouTube, and 3 years ago, whatever, you can still find all of those concepts. I'm actually not going to erase them from this YouTube. I'm not going to erase them from my Instagram either, just to see what kind of progress we've made here and also on other channels, right? I'm not ashamed of my history. You see that very clearly in my name too. But I do think there's a progress that we've made over these past 2 or 3 years specifically. And I think the people who are still following along, they need to kind of hear this stuff too, because a lot of us we're burnt by all of this stuff, by New Age, by religion. Religion's another huge one, because there's this tendency for people to go from like New Age to religion. You see it in Doreen Virtue and all of that too, which is, again, it's another false hope reality. It's another sack to call, or cul-de-sac, whatever. Like another dead end road, right? So C is saying Swiss Citizen Army. Yes. Don't really know if that one, you're talking about maybe if that exists or not. I don't know. With the Swiss, my friend was in Switzerland during 2020, and now she moved there in 2020. And if you did not have your face muzzle on in general, you were written up right away. So you want to talk about strictness in Switzerland? It exists, even though they were for one of the first ones to get rid of the testing system. They were one of the first ones to get rid of the masking up. It still existed there. And just the fact that you can't walk down a busy street somewhere in Switzerland without a person going to a police officer and telling them, hey, this person is not wearing her mask in the Fußgängerzone or whatever, which is like the pedestrian zone. That's no better than Germany and Austria and all of those other countries, right? So I don't think very highly of Switzerland. I don't think Switzerland is as neutral as they want to sell us. There's Chern or CERN is in Switzerland too. So there's a lot of dark stuff in Switzerland. Hi to Michelle. I rewound this to catch up, so I'm listening at a higher speed until I catch up to your presence. Yes. People can also always watch this in the replay. Hi to Sipola. Misha saying, I've been thinking to rewatch that movie too. I'm thinking you mean Inception. Sipola is saying, the Matrix movie triggered me when it came out. It was an interesting time of my life, again, with The Handmaid's Tale. I heard about The Handmaid's Tale. I might have to look into that too. It's a very interesting movie. It's a series, I think, right? I think it just started up again too. So yeah, it might be worth looking into, because they're giving us disclosure with all this stuff, right? Rainbow is saying it's because they get frustrated when nothing seems to work. I've been there. Hi to Rainbow. Good things we can keep evolving. Mahala saying they also have the chip implants in Switzerland. Michelle, I caught up as you just said hi to me. That's funny. A new season just came out from The Handmaid's Tale. Yeah, it's a series. Deborah saying Archaics predicts us moving to the far right moving forward. You may be onto something. Archaics was suggested to review because some people had the impression he was giving, once again, a little bit of truth, but never the full truth. And he's also misleading. He's also like in a savior mentality. I personally don't watch Archaics. I reached out to him once back in May or June, and I was asking him if he wanted to do an interview. Actually, I did it twice because I wanted to have him on the channel at one point. But he never replied. This is like always. I also reached out to this guy called Stellium 7, who was just featured by Autodidactic and whatever. So I think I reached out to Stellium 7 back in February and March because I thought his thing was very interesting. He has basically this thing where a huge mountain looks like an elephant. He's in Spain right now, but he's originally from the US. And then he had this thing where the petrified stones are basically petrified hearts and how you can find them all over. And so he never replied, which is fine. You know, some people just don't really vibe necessarily with this thing. Alison McDowell didn't want a second interview too, which is perfectly fine. I still like her. You know, I've met her. And the only person I've actually really met in person from all the people that I interviewed so far is Alison. So I actually know what her energy feels like in real life. I'm not mad with her because of it. She covers different stuff. You know, she's very, very focused on her AI stuff, on warning the people off with that. So I totally get why she wasn't necessarily drawn to that. But, you know, with the other people, like Arcade, it was a bit weird, like not even like a reply or something. And then all of a sudden he like blows up from like 10K to 30 or 40K. And I was like, well, something's off. And then with the entire prison story, something was off. So I don't really know what to think about him. We might review him. I'm not really sure. He's not on top of the list. Let's put it that way. I don't really, you know, I just don't gel with whatever he brings out. Let's put it that way. I'm just not, when I'm not drawn to a person's energy, I feel there's a reason, for me at least. I know in truther circles, a lot of people have been following him. Ismael Perez was another one who was like highly suggested too. And I think he might be a bit higher on the list to dissect as well. But we still have a few more New Agers to go. You know, I actually pre-recorded a few more videos. One of them you might like because he's a pretty prominent person, or may not like because, as we can tell. And that's another thing with the entire Gigi Young. What I really, you know, I would have never thought, first of all, that it would get that much attention, because for me personally, when I saw her channel, she posts somewhat regularly, but not really. You know, she doesn't post like EA and Lori Ladd. Like Lori Ladd posts like every single day, and EA posts like once or twice a week or 3 times a week, whatever. But with Gigi, she posts sporadically, you know, once a week and then once a month. You know, it was very strange. Like there was no real pattern to her posting, in my opinion, at least. She's been around for a while. You know, she's promoting her junk, her misleading brainwashing for a long time, you know, for 6+ years or even longer than that. Similar to that one person, what was her name? She completely went off. She had like a Patreon for a little while. Like this was a person, this is like a blonde woman who was promoted by a few other New Agers, and she would always post her energy updates like once a month, and then she would pull them off onto her Patreon and get completely off. I can't remember her name anymore, but I think she had like 100,000 followers too. So all of a sudden, from one year to another, like during 2020 and beyond, she was just off. I don't know. Yeah, she never really had her full name online either, so I don't really know what her real name was. It wasn't the Heather from Activation Vibration, but it was like a different one. I can see her face, but I can't picture her name. Anyhow, so with Gigi Young, I was very surprised that that video even gained a little bit of attention, and it actually attracted a whole lot of trolls, because I would have expected more from Elena Danon. Elena Danon actually posts a bit more frequently, but it kind of tells you how Gigi mentally gets to that. It kind of really showed me, you know, in addition to the dream that I just mentioned, which some people may or not agree with that dream. I don't really care. I'm just sharing my insight as it's coming through, right? So in addition to the psychic attack dream, and especially the thing where I was like pushed down this auditorium and basically left paralyzed to the ground, I really felt some followers wish that upon me, by the way. So after those type of days and nights, you always have to be very careful. Like usually there's random bikes or cars that want to get to you and almost drive you over. At least here in New York, I already noticed that every time I post a YouTube video, I'm out with my dog, and there's always like this random carrier, you know, the bike carrier or like someone who's delivering food. And it's always last minute that they stop. And it never happens on any other day. It only happens when I post content that could piss them off. Like I already noticed that, you know, like that could really piss the AI off. So I'm already kind of used to that at this point. But especially after that night, I was like super aware of that. You know, I was like, okay, we're not going to go down here because that thing could crash or whatever. It was a bit paranoid, but at the same time, I see it as warnings too. And life is a bit too short to ignore those, in my opinion. But where was I? I forgot where I was. Yeah, it kind of attracted a whole lot of trolls. There was this one comment too of this guy who said he was a model somehow and that the model industry really isn't that bad. All I have to say to that, when I actually checked out his YouTube, I don't know if he's a model. He kind of looked like a meathead model. So one of those like bodybuilder type of, taking protein shakes and a whole bunch of supplements type of model. That's not the type of modeling Gigi Young did. I think Gigi Young was more like in the fashion industry. I worked both for a makeup company here in New York City. I was actually temping for a makeup company, and I'm so happy I didn't get a full-time job with them. And I also worked for Fashion Week here in New York City. Okay, New York City is where you want to be for fashion in the US. And I can tell you one thing, the reptilian energy you have in the fashion industry here and also in Europe is real. So if that guy who's like a bodybuilder type of model doesn't see it that way, okay, you're in a different industry. We're not talking about the same type of modeling. We really aren't. And also for guys, it's not as bad as for women. I want to point that out too. I have to look at my little sheet here because there were a few other things that were being said. Another person was kind of like, oh, I wouldn't mess with Gigi because it seems like there's this really dark goddess energy behind her. That kind of confirms it once again, right? Because in my opinion, gods, like the gods, if you want to call them the Anunnaki or if you want to call us a god or whatever, but the gods created AI. So you're basically confirming once again, the clone body theory, the empty eyes, the soulless being theory. There was another channel. I forgot her name. Let me look it up real quick. I think her name was My Victory. Yeah, I think that was her name. If you look up Gigi Young Fraud or Review and you set the filter to video, she will show up. And this video is from like 3 years ago or 4 years ago or 2 years ago. It's from a few years ago. It has around 3,000 views at this point. So it kind of blew up a little bit over time, it seems. Because some comments are from like a year ago. Some are like from the 2 years ago or whatever. And she actually says how she had a reading with Gigi Young. And it almost left her traumatized because it was about, I don't know if it was about a love situation or some situation where she would have expected a bit more compassion and empathy. And the reading was just flat out, maybe reptilian or whatever. I don't really, she didn't use that term, but it was like flat out, kind of like shattering. And the review that she has on it is 15 minutes long, which really reminds me of the readings that I had because, the reason I reviewed Elizabeth April first or second to first, because first it was Dolores Cannon, was because I actually had 3 readings with Elizabeth April. And the last few ones were so horrendous that I actually demanded my money back because they were so misleading and nothing ever came true. And of course, I never got anything back. So that's just another thing. Oh, there were a few other things. People had messaged me on Instagram, and I want to go through an email, and I want to go through these 2 messages on Instagram where people who actually were asking about numbers and everything somehow. So let me just pull this up. Okay, so there was a person who was asking, okay, so they were like, I've been watching your videos now every day driving to work, and I totally fell into the New Age trap. I think we can all agree at this point, especially people who are following this channel, people who are following all these other channels, or who are kind of finding these channels. I know a lot of people found me through the Lionsgate thing and everything, but people who are just following all these concepts and who are now starting to question it, I think we can all agree we all fell for this, I mean, it's just, it's so brilliant the way they package it that they give you 50 or 60 or 70% of the so-called truth, but then you get hammered down with the rest of it to such a degree where it can really disorient you and cause a whole lot of damage, right? So I totally fell into the New Age trap. It's like, change the way I look at the world. Like, am I really spiritual? What does it even mean, right? And then I kind of replied to that. I know what you mean by the term spiritual. So the entire spiritual thing, if you look up spiritual, either on Google or YouTube, all of this, which by the way, Google owns YouTube. So it's no wonder that the Google search machine and YouTube are linked to each other. But, I know what you mean by the term spiritual. So when you look up spiritual, you come across all these New Age accounts or religion accounts. It's all been hijacked by the New Age community and also religion. I do think at our core, we are spiritual beings. And I really feel that so strongly that, in the essence of it, pretty much everyone who's watching or anyone who's really drawn to these type of things, even people who are maybe drawn to the New Age in a way, or people who are drawn to religion, I feel we're drawn to it because at our core, we are highly spiritual, right? So they're taking these things and they're putting like a box around it called New Age and religion. But our spiritual thing, it expands way beyond that. So they're kind of boxing the full potential that we have into these stuff. And spirituality for me really means inwards, not outwards. But I think at our core, we are spiritual beings. All these methods, spirit guides, angels, aliens, which, for example, EA and others are channeling and promoting, are taking us away from our inner core and our true spirituality. So instead of just being like, okay, just kind of sit with it, because you kind of do have all the answers to your questions within. If you really intuitively just ask, do I really want to eat this thing right now? Or do I want to accept this job offer? Do I want to go outside for a walk? You kind of do have all the answers. Do I want to travel here? Do I want to move to this country? Whatever. You kind of do have all the answers within. You don't need a psychic reading or anything in regards to that, right? But because religion promotes the entire archangel agenda, as we know, the New Age specifically, though, with the angel card readings and everything. So because the New Age and because religion promote going outside, worshiping this false god, like this AI god, just one of the many gods that exist, and you're feeding into that, you're feeding into the Vatican by doing that too, by the way, you're really forced away from your inner truth and your inner spirituality. Losing my voice here while I'm saying that. Very interesting. So they're taking us away from our inner core and our true spirituality. That's the biggest catch. When we find back to ourselves, we become more true to ourselves than with any of the other stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of people are still looking for a savior. And you really do notice that. We noticed that with a certain person who didn't win in 2020. A lot of people were looking for saviors in politics. A lot of people are looking for saviors for the climate change crisis, whatever that even means, right? A lot of people are looking for saviors in the New Age, like the Christ, the Antichrist, all of that stuff. All of these concepts are savior concepts in the essence of it. The term spiritual, therefore, barely resonates the way it's used by most of these, shills these days, in my opinion. So I hope that kind of makes sense. Yeah, and then we had another question. Okay, so this is actually from Yannick. I don't think he minds me mentioning his name. He's probably asleep right now. Yannick has a weird schedule. He's in the same time zone I am, but he's definitely on a weird schedule. So for 2 or 3 weeks, I do not stop seeing 333 or 666. When I was mastering my music, so he's a musician, the number was often there. Or I look at the time and right on, I see the number. So you probably saw it at like 3:33 p.m. or whatever. I know it's just a number. It doesn't really mean that much. And so for me, intuitively, I actually do want to do a proper reading on this one, though. For me, intuitively, what came through was I think they're pushing those numbers onto us like a code to kind of hypnotize us more, or for us to give consent to something which we don't really see in the real life yet. So kind of like an energetic consent to something that's happening. That's kind of what it felt like to me. So it's kind of like for them, it's a code. Maybe it's a code that goes like, you take it in with your eye and it goes straight to your soul somehow, and it puts them more in the spell. That's kind of what it felt like to me. But also keep in mind, the entire 3:33 p.m. or 3:33 a.m., that's a very US American thing. When I was in Europe, all clocks are like 1533 or 1640. You know, they don't really have the PM and AM. It's usually a 24-hour system. I don't know if it's the same in UK. It might be the same in UK. But this entire 333, you know, usually would only see that in the AM in Germany. So it might be more predominantly here in the US and Canada is what I was thinking too. Now you can randomly see it. You know, when you when you fill up your gas tank or whatever, you can see random numbers like that all the time. So it's just a thought that I had with the timing for sure. You know, the 1:11 p.m., like all of that stuff too. Okay, so those were those two questions. Let me just put this on airplane mode again. Let me see. There was one question that actually came in by email, which I thought was very interesting. Okay. So, hi, I have come across your videos on YouTube and I saw you mention light language. Yeah, light language is a huge one because light language puts so many codes on you. I was sucked into listening to light language a couple of times and now I don't feel right. The warm, fuzzy feeling in my heart is gone. Is there anything I can do about this? Also, I have a friend who is messing with new age things, and I can see that something isn't right with her. She goes to ceremonies and takes ayahuasca. How can I help her? So I kind of want to answer the last part first, and I know we're already like an hour in. Wow, that happened super quick, by the way. If you guys have anything you want to discuss still, just put it in the chat. I know there were a few things that came through. I'll go through your comments in a minute too. So basically, with the entire ayahuasca thing, okay, so I already have a video covering the ayahuasca and how it's basically just opening you up to these entities coming through. And I know other people are saying that too. I personally do know here in Brooklyn, because I am in New York, in Brooklyn, there was this one case in a spiritual institution, let's call it that way, where they have yoga ceremonies, they have cacao ceremonies, they have ayahuasca ceremonies, or at least they used to have ayahuasca ceremonies. I'm not really sure they have them anymore after that incident. So I think back in 2017, 2018, there was this case where this 19-year-old teenager, you know, obviously she's above the age of 18, but she's still a teenager in my opinion. She was sexually assaulted by one of the ceremonial givers, by one of the shamans or whatever. I think in terms of they took advantage of her in one form or another, you know, which is pretty messed up if you think about it. I mean, it's similar to that happening when you're drunk or when you had like these date rape drugs put in your drink, right? It's a similar concept basically. When you're under the influence of these things, you can't be held 100% accountable, at least in my opinion. So somehow they took advantage of that and just hushed it beneath the carpet. And then one person who was working there told one of my friends, and my friend told me. So that's kind of how I know. I don't think it's a made up story either. So it's pretty messed up, in my opinion. That can happen, honestly. And it's because it's such a long trip. You know, it's basically like an 8-hour or even longer trip, depending on what the ceremony really is. And the entire purging with ayahuasca, that really is not you purging your own toxic stuff. That's you picking up all the toxic stuff from the people around you, like a radio antenna, and purging it. So you're picking up on all the other entities of people around you. Now, I have friends. I had this one friend, and she was already, in her 40s or 50s at that point. She had gone to like 60 of these ceremonies within the time frame of 2 years, 30 ceremonies a year. So that's like every other weekend. So I do think it's similar to alcohol. It's similar to other substances that people take. It can make you very addictive. And I think the main reason for that is, I've never taken it. I don't even have the desire to take that substance in particular, because every time I hear something about ayahuasca, I'm like, there's no reason for me to ever take this. But basically, I think the reason for it really is because it gives you this escape route out, and you think you're shown a higher reality, but in reality, it might just be these entities effing around with you in the astral. But no matter what, it might give you even one of these false highs, right? or it might give you something, and that's why you have to keep on going back and going back. So this person's saying, I can see that something isn't right with my friend. She goes to these ceremonies and takes ayahuasca. How can I help her? I don't know. I really feel for these people, you can direct them towards channels like these, but I really feel unless they kind of have the veil from their eyes somehow, unless they really hit rock bottom, which I feel happened with a lot of us, me included too. Like I hit, in my opinion, I did hit rock bottom at one point where I was like, this is not working anymore. Why is this not working? Right. And that was when I was actually in Australia, like very far from my family and friends. And it was a bit of a scary situation. And I might mention it in a separate video too. But unless these people hit rock bottom, you might think nothing's wrong with it. You might be like, why? I can channel, I can take my substances. Like I'm so high and mighty, like I'm going to ascend to 5D. It's the cult mentality. You're getting something from it. You're getting the false stuff from it. And unless you literally see it that way, it's very hard. And I think that's also why so many people still troll, because they're under the influence of something. Some entity probably has them gripped in somewhere. And on the other hand, it gives you a form of safety to be in that community, to not be understood by normal people who aren't spiritual or whatever. But on the other hand, I've also talked to people who were like, yeah, but the entire 6 or 7 years they were doing it, they were always bankrupt. They overmaxed their credit cards. Like they were trying to manifest, it didn't work. And all of those things. And I'm like, yeah, that's true, because that's basically what it is. You're in this false high. You don't see reality for what it is. And yeah, sure, you can also be in credit card debt because of school or other things. But I do think with the new age, it definitely tends to happen too, because you just go to one ceremony after another, you do one certificate after another, and you always have to chase another thing, right? Which there's also another thing on cacao ceremonies that someone else posted, but I might just put that in a separate video, because with cacao, it's the same thing, like all these fake cacao ceremonies, importing the cacao all over the world where it doesn't really belong. Like, it's just so, yeah. I dealt with those type of people too. Okay. Now let's go through a few comments. I actually wanted to talk about timelines and the cell phone cages too. Good thing is we can keep evolving. Okay, hold on. No. Rainbow is saying, speaking of chips, my senior cat just had a surgery and they microchipped her without my consent. That's always messed up when that happens, right? In my opinion, these vets are one of the worst. Like, some vets are just so out there. I have my own share of like vet that I, at this point, almost hate, because he barely looks at my dog when I bring her in. And I pay him for that. I pay him to do nothing, basically. And I'm like, at least check your ears. Like, at least pretend you're checking something, or check her paws or whatever. Like something, don't just say she's fine when you don't really know. And I had to bring her in recently because she actually had an ear infection and everything. It was a whole thing. And I got really upset about it. But yeah, it's messed up. The entire microchipping with animals, I already had a video on it, how I don't know if they can track it. Supposedly they say they can't track you with that, but I don't think it's healthy for anyone to have a microchip within them. It's not a natural state of being to have a microchip within you, right? For animals either. So I would try to deactivate it energetically, which you can. You can deactivate chip implants and also proper chips like microchips. At least I do think strongly you can do that. It's all energy. So even if they can still scan it, whatever, just kind of set to deactivating it somehow, and for it not to cause so much harm. Because I do think there's a form of radiation that can go out from these type of microchips. I myself am in a similar situation, because if I wanted to take my dog with me to Germany or other countries, not so much Mexico, but a few other ones, they want the pet to be microchipped, like UK, all of that. They want the pet to have the rabies shot and a microchip. And the microchip is kind of a huge thing, because for me personally, I was never planning on putting that inside of her, and I still haven't. But at the same time, I don't want to keep leaving her randomly with other people. And I'm also trying to train her as a service dog and everything. And so even service animals have to like have a microchip abroad. So it's pretty stinky, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do at this point. I had to stop on the 3rd season. Got to catch back up with The Handmaid's Tale. Yeah. Rainbow's saying he didn't go outside. I didn't need that. I think they're just randomly trying to get more money because they charge for microchips too, even though it's not a whole lot. It's like $30 or whatever. I think it's just the money-making industry. And also they just want every pet like hooked up to the AI is what I'm like. So there's no reason to even have a microchip on pets when you bring them abroad, but whatever. Please do a breakdown on Utsava. I actually don't know who Utsava is. Deborah is saying, I am starting to question JCK. Yeah, JCK kind of blew up from like nothing to 60K within the period of like half a year or so. JCK has a very vampire-like energy to me. Every time I see her, the teeth look like vampires. And that's how I know, sometimes these people have a vampire energy. I asked about going to the light, and she says not going is fear-based. I don't agree with her. Yeah, that's what it is. They hook you in with these false predictions. And then when you actually ask questions that could get you out of here, they don't usually have an answer other than, oh, the 5D ascension trap, yada, yada. Or, oh, of course, go to the light, go to the light. Just keep getting recycled over and over again. It's like, I saw this one person actually promote Dolores Cannon on her channel recently. And I was like, what the heck? Like, at least now we know what you're really about, right? I mean, if people don't get it, I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. Like, I'm actually kind of happy I was never in touch with this person. But, I also feel these people, for example, like JCK and others, they really don't have a higher awareness. And that's why I was so surprised when so many people were attacking me because of Gigi Young. First of all, I don't really care about Gigi Young that much. I literally just popped her on because I thought it would be interesting to put the entire alien agenda and New Age together. But it seems the few people that did get upset and who made it clear that they were upset for whatever reason, those were the ones who are also like, what do you mean she provides higher insight and all that? I'm like, no, she doesn't. She really doesn't. She just regurgles the same New Age crap that everyone else regurgles. And she keeps you trapped in these false mentalities, like the angels, like the whatever. And if she's talking about other stuff and she didn't get it from Rudolf Steiner, which at this point, I almost believe Rudolf Steiner is also like controlled op or whatever. I don't think she's getting much of her own insight. So it was similar to JCK. It's kind of like channeling these random entities or whatever. And she's from an area, because I was in Australia for 6 months. She's from the Blue Mountain area, I think. When you looked her up in the beginning, you could still find stuff on her being an actress. That already tells you a whole lot about people in the limelight all of a sudden who used to be actors. They're brilliant actors or models, and that's why they also seem so convincing. So that's what JCK used to be an actress. That's all I have to say to that. But yeah, I guess we could go through one of her stuff. I think she's on the list. I mean, it kind of already shows you how misleading it is, right? Like, she tells you to go to the light. That's all you have to know about these people. The Gail is saying, I'm late, but we'll watch from the beginning when the life is over. Yes. Wow. We're already like an hour and 10 minutes. And Kiviana, New Zealand, we have to microchip for higher class dogs. I have a Staffordshire Terrier. It's not surprising for New Zealand that they're doing that. Yeah, I mean, UK, for the past 10 years or so, UK has required a microchip to enter. And the same with Germany, the same with the entire EU. If you want to go to Mexico, you only need like a health certificate. You don't need a microchip or whatever. If you want, and this is the thing, if you want to go to Hawaii, which is a US state, for Hawaii, you need a microchip. You need the rabies shot and a second rabies shot. So basically like 2 or 3 rabies shots within time frame of a few weeks or months. And this is for the dog, obviously. And they might even be kenneled in for 5 to 7 days when they arrive. So think about just taking your dog with you on a quick 10-day vacation or whatever. That's not going to happen in Hawaii. Oh, and they need a blood test too. That's the kicker. So with all this stuff, health certificate, blood test, like blood samples, something like that, it's just, Hawaii seemed like one of the most ridiculous destinations ever. Cipolla is saying, weird. While you were talking about the microchip, either my phone or my headset kept cutting out. Well, hopefully you can watch it in the replay. Who is JCK? Sounds like I don't want to know. She's this Australian actress who's a psychic who was also featured on Autodidactics thing. They had like this event together in Melbourne, whatever. And she blew up in like September 2020. She was doing predictions on the former leader of the US. When Magenta Pixie, Lori Ladd, like all these people were predicting he would win and then he didn't necessarily win, right? That type of situation. And she was also reading on the Vatican. So she was hooking people in with interesting topics. But I wouldn't be surprised if half of her predictions never came true. And she also has these two kind of like teeth that look like the first thing when I saw her back in 2020, the first thing they reminded me of was like vampire energy, which they do exist. Vampires very much exist, and gnomes and all of that exist as well. So Deborah is saying also about JCK, she recently did a video about cacao ceremonies. Yeah, all of these people are doing stuff on New Age stuff, They're not doing stuff on question your reality at all. They're just kind of questioning your reality to a certain degree, but never to the full extent of what is possible. Sasha is saying, is Matthias De Stefano on your list to look at? Yeah, I can write them down right now. Let's write these people down. So JCK is high on that list. The list is quite extensive at this point. Teal Swan is actually really high on that list, but the entire Gigi Young thing kind of reminded me of, is that going to be the same backlash that's going to come from reviewing Teal Swan? Like, I don't know. It didn't seem very promising to me. Matthias De Stefano, is he on the, I felt he was on the list somewhere. I'll just put him down here. Matthias De Stefano. And then we also had Utsava or something like that. Aubrey Marcus has had Matthias De Stefano several times. Okay, so we had someone like Utsava. I think Aubrey Marcus was on this list somehow. Yeah, also I started writing them down because if YouTube is just randomly taking videos down, I want to make sure I have all these suggestions to either pull onto other outlets or whatever, right? Okay, so all right. So I briefly wanted to mention the timeline thing too. It was so interesting to hear your thoughts about Lori Ladd. I always thought something was really off of it. Well, she's just kind of out there, isn't she? Like, she's kind of, some people were like, she's not home. The entire filming from a car, for me personally, it doesn't look professional. So it's kind of like she's kind of gaga, isn't she? Like, kind of out there. Which, is nothing about being eccentric and, if that's your thing, but it's just really irritating. For me, it's kind of disrespectful to your listeners to not even have a proper microphone set up. But also just the stuff she talks about is very dangerous, aside from all of that. So some people were like, oh, because you make fun of people recording in their car and not having a microphone and not having proper lighting. So you guys don't realize I worked with top class photographers here in New York. I still do photography, but when I was actually really doing photography, because right now with 2020 and everything, it's obviously with the restrictions, the mandates has gotten a bit more difficult, but it's still possible. When I was really immersed in that, And I was really taking like one workshop after another. I was in touch with so many top class photographers. You know, you're talking about the biggest camera store in the US. You're talking about the second biggest camera store here in the US. So I learned from people who are the best in their trade, you know, legit. And even the setup I have right now, it's a simple setup. You just pop on the light and that's it. You know, you make sure there's not too much of a cluttered background. The white is always a bit difficult. You can always have a reflector set up. You know, if you really want to be super professional, this could use a lot of building out too. Don't get me wrong. But since I want to sit and I want to have this a homely atmosphere, this is my setup right now. But my point is, it doesn't take a whole lot to look professional on camera, okay? So when people come at me, it's the same with Feel Good, which you'll see at one point too. When people come at me because, oh, you're making fun of their lighting, you don't understand the people I've worked with in my entire, 10 plus years I've been doing it. It's a joke. Not having a proper lighting set up, it doesn't take a lot to get a proper lighting. You either go in front of the window or you have something that shines at you. You know, it really, it's not even that expensive. So I'm always upset when I see that people are not taking their lighting seriously or their microphone quality seriously. Because if you're recording videos, you should have a half decent microphone somewhere. You know I have to upgrade mine too. I realize that it's definitely not the same quality it was 2 years ago. I'm looking into that too. But like legit, it's just, it always rubs me the wrong way because there are people out there with channels that have like 50 followers, whatever, who teach so much about lighting and everything. Like the information is out there, you know. It doesn't take a lot to be technologically advanced or whatever. There's so much free information, and you just come at me. You plop yourself in front of a screen. You have the window light behind you and not a fill light, and you think that's professional. It's not professional. I'm sorry. It just really pisses me off so bad. You guys have no idea because it's like, and then you have your 100,000 or 1 million followers and you just do that. I mean, it's insanity. I'm sorry. It's disrespectful towards anyone who can teach you about lighting. Let's put it that way, you know? So that's kind of the rant that I had about, because one person was still so upset. She was like, why are you making fun of their lighting? And I'm like, well, their lighting is crap. I'm sorry. Someone has to point it out. Mark Atwood doesn't want any more to do with her. Yeah, I don't really know. I think someone suggested him too. I don't watch them anymore. However, heard from someone who watches and defends. It's the same with Simon Parks, right? Wasn't he really pushed by Magenta Pixie and all these other people too? And then all of a sudden he just kind of disappeared out of the limelight. What about Ralph Smart? He's got a YouTube Gold Award. Just curious if you have heard of him. Yeah, he should be up for a review too. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of boring to review his stuff. It's always the same, but I think he's such a phony, smelling all that prana. Yeah, Ralph Smart has like huge reptilian energy too, so very controlled as well. So there were a few more things. Okay, timelines. Let's go into timelines. My voice is fading, which is weird. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes. Usually it's not that bad. Okay, yeah, resets. Okay. When do resets happen? Definitely with this entire mud flood thing, 1900-ish was a huge one. So let's just say around the year 1900, they had like one of these major resets. By the way, there's 28 people watching, only 17 likes. Please like if you like this video. So it does appear that the mud flood reset was like one of the most major ones in terms of a crucial part of our history being erased and civilization somehow being erased. Okay. And it does appear when you look at all these things like cathedrals, let's even say Sedona Cathedral Rock stuff, all of that. I think that was a more previous mud flood reset, though, probably more like in the 1600s or whatever. But if you look at all these mud flood things, it could have been that the last one was around 1900-ish, and that people knew about it even during that time, and that somehow it was pretty much forgotten through the war. I feel part of the reason the wars were pulled off, especially World War II, maybe not so much World War I, was to kind of completely erase history as we know it, including the entire giant history and all of that. And it could be that, let's just say you were around the year 1908, right? You were walking among like the Eiffel Tower and all these electronic advances that they had. When you see the interview with Adam from a while ago, like a few weeks ago before the strike and everything, like he was talking about the Zeppelins. I completely even forgot when he was mentioning the Zeppelins. I was like, oh my gosh, I totally remember seeing pictures of the Zeppelins like way back in the day when I was a child. But I completely had to erase that out of my mind somehow that they existed. So the entire Zeppelin thing is also very interesting. But, all of that, there's a lot of stuff that existed. And it was kind of erased through the wars, because the wars create trauma. And then it only takes like 2 generations to completely erase your history, right? So the people who were around in the 1900s and who were around in the 1960s and 70s, like some of them obviously got erased during the war. And others experienced so much trauma they weren't able to really tell the story that they needed to. And yet others just really weren't aware of what's going on. So it's a mix of things. But the huge reset was the mud flood reset. Seemed like it was around 1900 or ish. So around the year 1900. Was the 2017 reset a thing? I'm not sure. For me personally, in my life, I got it was more like 2018, more like April 2018, which also makes me wonder if there were different resets for different groups of people. Because another person also commented being like they felt it was more 2018 for them too. And then other people, including some that I interviewed, were like a huge one happened in 2017. And I'm like, yeah, 2017 was a pivotal year for me, for sure. It's the last year I was actually in a corporate job, and then I kind of siphoned over to freelance work and being my own boss. So for sure, there were like huge changes. I actually moved out of an apartment that I had for like 5+ years, or like almost 7 years, I forgot, for a very long time. And it was like a huge change. It was also the year where I added all this new age stuff in my life. So 2017 was personally a very challenging and changing year. But I remember going through 2018, especially the first few months, and it feeling like I wasn't 100% grounded. And I think I mentioned that in a YouTube live a few years ago, where I legit felt I was walking into a subway station even, and I wasn't all the way there. So I don't know. The entire ungroundedness, I also kind of think it had to do with, back then I was initiated into Reiki in 2017, and it called a whole bunch of reptilian energy into my life. People were attacking me randomly, like close people. And I kind of felt it could have had to do with that partially. But I also felt it had to do with something else. And maybe that's because for me, the reset didn't happen until April 2018 or something. It also feels that could be the case for other people. So maybe there were different groups, just like groups of people came in, 1 billion years ago or 2,000 years ago, or whatever, to change whatever here. And then we kind of just got stuck over and over again, just like that. For different groups, the reset was different. But then I also so another reset happened in 2021, which that makes sense to me because the entire energy, especially where I am here in New York in 2021, they were rolling out the entire injection agenda, right? So, I mean, they were already rolling it out in 2020 and before, don't get me wrong. But the huge major point of where me and my freedom rally crowd people, the people who are really standing up and protesting this stuff. And, I have videos on that too. And obviously their group is very splintered off as well. They still exist though, and I still go to some of their events. But, the people who were kind of like, okay, we kind of see through what's really going on when we're trying to warn people and yada, yada. We really noticed this huge shift in the summer of 2021, especially when de Blasio, who was still the mayor back then, and what we have right now, it doesn't even matter who's the mayor. They're all just destructive at this point. Even Bloomberg, he was like pretty bad. But all these mayors here, de Blasio was the one who ordered, okay, you can't get a job here without your first, second injection, and possibly third. And you can't walk into a restaurant unless it's outdoor seating without the mandates and all of that. When that happened in August 2021, because that's the official date it started, I was still hopeful. I was like, we're going to see how many people really stand up against it. But at the end of the day, what I was really upset about, and that's also the reason I went to Texas in January, and I was kind of gone from New York for like almost 3 months, like 2.5 months or whatever. The main reason was because the energy just started feeling really off here. You're talking about AI, you're talking about people being converted to AI, all of that. There's more stuff that goes into it. But so basically for me in 2021, that huge shift happened when de Blasio announced you basically are not a human being anymore unless you conform to our stuff, unless you conform to the entire injection agenda. You won't get a job. Luckily for me, everything's been remote, but you won't get a job. You won't be able, you have to test every week. Otherwise, if some people, just random stuff like that, and just being discriminated against to such a degree, and people literally losing their job over this. A lot of freedom rally people still have not returned to a proper job, really. Some have because their employers don't care. But others, there's this one guy from Staten Island who wants to become a politician now. He's, I don't know, like mid-30s or whatever. Like he's pretty young still. Like he lost his job in healthcare because of it. There are people out there who still can't pay their rent because they don't have any income. Just stuff like that, that all of that was set in motion in 2021. Before 2020 or before 2021, it didn't exist. You were being harassed for not wearing a mask on the subway. Of course, I went through that too, where I even had a video how many times I was harassed by these random bots. But other than that, you weren't discriminated against to such a degree then at that point, and I know it didn't just happen here in New York. It happened in other cities too. It even happened in certain parts of Montana. So, you can't tell me that there are a few freedom states still, but no, most of them, no, in my opinion, no. So it makes sense that 2021 in a way was another reset. And then the next one supposedly is around 2023 or 2024, which I had predictions on 2023, 2024. I might want to read on that again next year. I haven't read on it this summer, didn't feel drawn to it, whether or not it's going to come true. Because I was like, they're going to pull off another lockdown maybe or whatever. For me, it kind of feels more like a different thing than a lockdown, more like an AI thing. But I do feel 2023, 2024 are going to be pivotal years in a form or another. So the purpose of these resets to wipe people's memories and minds and reset to ground zero somehow. Okay. That's kind of what I got on it. It kind of reminds you of the World Trade Center story too, and all of that. And yes. Okay. Faraday cage. So I'm going to discuss Faraday cages, and then we'll get to a few more of your questions. And I think that might be it for the live today because we're already 1.5 hours in. And I can't believe my voice is like fading. I wanted to record like at least one more video after this. I'm running out of water too. And I can't believe my dog has been like so good the entire time. She's been really good ever since coming back. I think she's kind of traumatized by the fact that I left her for so long. I left her for like 10 days with this other person, and it was a disaster. So also I know, you're talking about psychic attacks in your life. I get to feel them on a regular basis. They're always trying to get to my dog. They're trying to get to my family. They're trying to get to friends. They're trying to get to this and that. My apartment, my neighbors, it's just it's so lame at this point. I just know I can feel it when I see it. I can see it when I know what it is when I see it. So, so I think my dog is still, she came back. She had like this huge ear infection, which went untreated for like a week, which wasn't fair at all. And even if the people didn't know much about dogs, they should have still kind of noticed that, because it was at that point, it was this huge yeast infection thing where you literally just flap your ear over and you see it. It's not like you can't see or smell it at all. So I was pretty upset about that. There were also a few other things going on, which I might mention in a Patreon live. I don't really want to mention them on the public channel. So yeah, Patreon's picking up again too. I put it on pause for like a month, but we're picking it up again in a few days, around the 20th or 21st. Excited for that. And so yeah, so I think because of my dog, because I think she was just kind of left alone. And because she's so young still, she's like 8 months old. When they're so young, they don't really know. They don't really have that trust 100% like older dogs would, is what my friend told me at least. And so she must have been a bit traumatized by the fact that she just didn't know what was going on, right? She was sleeping in this different environments for so long and probably thought I left her. So ever since that experience, she's been very good, very well behaved. Definitely has a positive, because she was a bit on the wild side before that. And she actually enjoys her crate now. Before that was always like drama, trying to put her in and be like, listen, I have to put you in here. Otherwise you're going to destroy my apartment and all of those things. So very interesting how it works, how sometimes they just have to be in an environment that's worse. I don't know how to explain it otherwise, which is pretty bad. I agree. Not going to leave her with that person at all anymore. But yes, Faraday cages. Okay, so I tried out 3 different ones, and I stuck with these 2. And of these 2, I only recommend this one. So you can get an expensive one for, I think, $100 or $60, $50 online. I forgot what website. I have not yet tried that one out. These are basically cell phone covers, okay? So what you would do, I have my cell phone right here. You would slip your cell phone into the sleeve, and you can purchase them on Amazon, by the way. And this one was around 10 to 13 US dollars. They are made by, they're probably made by the same manufacturer, but they're offered by different companies because they all look the same. I actually purchased another one for my friend in Germany because I'm really convinced by this one. So she's enjoying hers right now. And then you have this one, which is a humongous one. It has Faraday solutions on it, which was around $11 to $15. It depends on where you purchase it from, with tax and everything too. And okay, sorry, I forgot to. So with this one, you would literally, it has like this magnetic thing, and the inside looks a little bit similar to this one. So let's just say, obviously you put the phone out of this sleeve, you put it in, you slip it in, and you kind of just do like that, okay? And then you kind of just, it looks like a purse more than anything. So I'm not a huge fan of sizes. This is too much for me, to be honest with you. I guess if you just kind of put it next to your bed or put it somewhere on your desk and forget about it, it's okay. Now, actually, out of these 2, which I think this one's already okay, effective, it's supposed to get rid of tracking. So, when you're walking around in public and some people try to steal your credit card information because they use this scanner or whatever. And so it's supposed to get rid of that specifically. I'm not 100% sure if it works that well, which is why I think it's okay. But if I were to recommend one over the other, this is 100% a go. Because when I put my phone in this one, sometimes it still rings, when I have another person call my phone. So it still has reception for the first minute or so. Then after like a few minutes, like 5 minutes, it kind of goes away. So it takes a while for it to go away. Whereas when I put my phone in this sleeve, even though it's much thinner, like this one is very, very thick. Even though this is much thinner, for some reason the material they're using, it works right away. So the reason behind these Faraday cages is, in my opinion, EMF radiation. You want to get rid of it, especially when you're asleep. So when I'm asleep, I have this sitting right next to me. I usually put my phone off. I put my Wi-Fi router off too. But you still have radiation coming from your cell phones, especially if your phone is older than 5 years, is younger than 5 years. You know, the ones that are like, I have an iPhone XR at this point, it's from 2018. It emits so much radiation, like way more than my iPhone 5 did before that. Some people are talking about upgrading to the 14 or 13, whatever. I don't really want to upgrade until this phone's not working anymore, but we're kind of getting at that point after 4 years or so. So I don't know what to do because I really don't want to upgrade. Anyhow, this one gets rid of the entire radiation because not a single phone signal gets through, not a single Wi-Fi signal gets through. And I'm pretty sure this is pretty effective if you want to talk about any radiation coming from your phone. What I usually do is I put my phone off entirely. I don't have to set an alarm on it. I would probably recommend you guys have a separate alarm clock anyhow, because phone batteries die all of a sudden for no reason and all those things, you know. But if you need it as an alarm, you could still put it in this cage. It's just no signal would ever get through. Very effective. And I wanted to announce these. You know, I'm not getting anything out of it. I'm not getting commission or anything out of it. It's just my personal experience that I had dealing with them. And these two seem pretty effective so far. I've not tried out the $100 one. I've not tried out the $60 one. These are cheaper ones, like $10 to $15. Just something that I looked into over these past 2 years. There was a third one. I didn't recommend that one at all, though. So, yeah, you can just look it up. You know, look up Faraday cages on Amazon and see what your country offers if you see like a similar one. This is kind of like a gold and silver touch, or beige, whatever. So yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. I thought it was interesting for people who are looking into it. And then my German friend, so I visited her, and she didn't have that for her phone, but she actually had this here, the same material, put over her Wi-Fi router. So it was like this larger thing somehow. And I'm like, oh, that's smart. I should have thought about that too. So I'm going to look into getting something like that as well. But I usually turn it off completely at night. But still, with the radiation and everything, as I already covered in a different video, they can have cancer-causing stuff in it, you know, cancer-causing material and all of that. Okay. Deborah is saying Blue Water has a list of non-truthers, including Charlie Ward and Simon Park's crew. Good catch. But I think Charlie Ward and Simon Parks are truthers. 2017 was a major change for me too. 2017 was a huge for me too. Some people are saying that. A few people came into my life that were very toxic and caused massive upheaval. Jimmy is saying, I got a question. Does ancient creatures exist in 1400s? And what does the meaning of red flower or rose mean? Yeah, interesting question. So the ancient creatures like the giants and the fairies and gnomes and all of that, I do think they've existed. They still exist nowadays. They're just kind of put in these certain areas like Grand Canyon area possibly, or certain areas like in Australia. It felt like the Blue Mountains would have a few of those creatures floating around. I feel all of those still exist. So yes, for sure. You know, 1400s for sure. The meaning of the red flower or red rose is interesting, and I can't really answer that here in this YouTube live, but I've been looking a lot into the entire, you know, when the Tudor regime came around, the white rose, the red rose. So you had the House of York, the House of Tudor. So it leads back to that beforehand. I feel it kind of came out of Avalon maybe, which Avalon is really interesting to cover. And I feel the red flower, there's definitely a meaning behind it. But the red roses have been around even before the War of the Roses, which is basically the war between the House of York and the House of Tudor or whatever Tudor came out of those two things. Even before that, the roses were always a symbol somehow, you know, the rose garden and being poked by a rose and offering roses to certain, yeah, it's definitely a meaning behind it. I feel there's a deeper meaning behind it. Great question. I mean, roses are supposed to symbolize love and relationships. And traditionally, you only had red and maybe white. Nowadays, you have blue and all of those other colors, which aren't, you know, the natural color. So I feel it has a lot to do with romantical stuff, but it also has to do maybe with the heart too. Because when you do rose healing, it's all about the heart as well. You know, roses can be very, very powerful in healing. Maybe the rose is a symbol for the heart. Haha. See what we're dissecting here in YouTube life. Yeah, maybe it leads back to where our heart is trapped somehow, like all these symbols. I legit just removed this lily rose off of someone during a session. Yeah, that was new to me too. Like all these hijacked symbols, like the New Age symbols, like the sacred geometry and everything. It's just crazy. What's been coming through in the past few weeks has been pretty out there. I kind of want to do separate videos on it, but I don't really know how. We'll see. Mahala's saying I had to leave my job in 2021 due to the mandates. Yeah, a lot of people had to look for new jobs. My one friend looked for a new job. She was in the public sector. She was a social worker. She would have had to be tested every single week because she was not going to conform to the mandates. And so she just looked for a job. She got a raise. Obviously, when you leave your job, most of the time you do get a raise in it because, well, maybe not in 2021, but she actually did end up earning a bit more money and being able to work remotely from home, which she wasn't able to in the previous job. And it was not necessarily in the public sector anymore, which was great. So that was good for her. What's the big shift in 2024 worth reading on? Leah is saying, as I'm listening to this, the thunder is roaring outside. Yeah. The weather has been pretty crazy. We have some colder days here, but then it's just turning hot again. I have my AC on again. It's just a bit out there. Rainbow's saying, I'm cooking and listening. That's why I haven't typed much. Misha's cooking too. Oh, Randall is saying grounding Faraday silver thread blankets are awesome. That's a good suggestion. Iman is saying, I use an EMF patch on my phone. Yes, you can do that too. I have Shungite on my phone, but I used to have like an orgonite thing on my phone. But I do think it's more effective to put your phone in the sleeve entirely and to have it completely wrapped up, especially when you're sleeping. And especially for people who do use their phone as an alarm and you can't turn it off completely, at least make sure the radiation doesn't get to you. Let's put it that way. So 1 hour, 42 minutes in. I think that's good. Thanks everyone for joining. If you're new, definitely like this video, subscribe, share, whatever. I'll put a link on how to subscribe to the mailing list and other channels like YouTube Odyssey below. And I think we covered a whole lot. There's almost always so much to talk about, but yeah. And if you like this new format a bit earlier, let me know as well. I don't know if it's European friendly or not, but I mean, it's either going to be afternoonish time or late evening time because those are kind of the only times I can really do. I'm not an early morning person. And there are lives like twice a month. So one of those time zones should work for you, I think. Okay, guys, have a wonderful one. And thank you so much for your support, everything you do. Don't get misled by the New Age, by religion. Talk to you very soon. Bye.